is to recognize that this other person who is different from me actually may care about something different when it comes to money.
So, Shaunti, you've done a massive study on finances in marriage, one of the defining studies, in my opinion. And I know that we hear this question, I'm sure you do too, and that is from that individual that's thinking, how do I get on the same page with my spouse financially? It just doesn't feel like we're in sync. What's your answer?
So the financial radio call-in programs tell me that's their top question. They always have somebody who says, "How do I get my wife on the same page?" or "How do I get my husband on the same page with me?" And here's our starting point is that you have to realize what you're actually saying there. The translation is, how can I get them to agree that I'm right? That's kind of the translation of what you're saying. And what we actually have to do in order for both of us to be on the same page, we found, is to recognize that this other person who is different from me actually may care about something different when it comes to money that may seem crazy to me in some ways, but that in most cases, now not all, but in most cases, what they care about is totally legitimate. And if we're ever going to actually get on the same page, we have to understand what our spouse values. The biggest reason we found statistically for the clash around money in marriage is that we're just not valuing what our spouse
Right.
values.
That makes so much sense because we value different things and we sometimes either project our value onto them or just don't even think about what they value most. Some of us value being heard. Some of us value fulfilling our dreams with our finances. We have different values when it comes to that. And so you're saying make sure you understand that, and that'll help you kind of pull that person into your space and vice versa so that you can find that common ground. Is that the solution?
Yeah, let me give you a real quick example of this. And by the way, I should say there are obviously going to be some cases where what somebody values just is kind of sort of off the reservation, like somebody who has a gambling addiction. Those aren't the cases that we're talking about here. We're talking about the average kind of normal couple. And one example is that often it's a spender and a saver, right? Or even sometimes you have two savers and one of them is more comfortable spending money. It's a common value clash. And I tend to be more of the one who's comfortable spending. Jeff is much more the saver. When the pandemic shut everything down, he actually came and sort of told me, I'm dealing with a little bit of resentment because all of our speaking engagements are canceled and our income has really been cut. And if we hadn't gone to Disney World last year with the kids, or if we hadn't gone out to eat, we'd have a lot more money in our bank account that we could really use. But here's what happened. Because we'd been doing this research, he thought about it and said, but I realize that's not fair because you actually, with those days at Disney World and with the times out to eat and going bowling or whatever it was, you were building connection and you were building closeness and togetherness as a family. And now we're stuck in quarantine on top of each other and we like each other. It wasn't a net cost, which is what he said he as a saver had been thinking it was. It was actually an investment. And here's the key for all of you who want your spouse on the same page. What happened in my heart when Jeff said that? Because he's showing he doesn't necessarily agree. Like he still thinks we could have had free picnics in the park instead of going out to eat. But he understood what I valued. And it made it so much more easy for my defensiveness to lower and for me to be willing to talk about, okay, let's embrace the austerity plan now that, the income has been so
Right.
disrupted.
Right.
That is the key
That's the
for
key.
getting on the same page.
Understand what your spouse values because
Yeah.
that will direct how they approach their finances. And that creates empathy. And empathy always brings two people together. Shaunti, thanks so much.